research. And so I'm happy to be here. Just a disclaimer that I'm participating here on my own behalf. So the views that I will express are my own and do not reflect the views of my company or the companies I've worked for in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Luciana. Leonard.
Thank you. Well, thank you first, Service Design Network Portugal, and the whole team for inviting me and my co-speakers. It's a pleasure to be here, and yeah, I'm looking forward to a very nice and interesting discussion. So I'm Leonard Schurg. I'm industrial design engineer by upbringing. Actually, we share this background I share this background with Erik. We both studied in industrial design in the Netherlands, in TU Delft, and well, me quite some years later. But yeah, I have worked in sustainability and design sustainable systems all my career throughout very different industries, from solar refrigeration to clean cooking stoves, plastic recycling, modern syn fuels, surfboards. So a whole range of very weird things coming together. And I have done that as an entrepreneur, as a project member, as a full-time employee, as a part-time employee. I don't really care how, I just really care about the cause and getting it done. And so that, yeah, has brought me always to very interesting projects. And I'm going to talk today mainly about one of the projects, is the flip-floppy, because I think it's a nice case to show, and it's very relevant to service design as such. And obviously, I'm speaking as a product designer, engineer. So yeah, I will always try to incorporate the service design point of view, but I might have some shortcomings on that side. So yeah, forgive me for that. Thank you.
Wow, that's great stories, Luciana and Leonard. Thank you for having me. I'm Erik. I am indeed an industrial designer by background, but then I also studied design management. And then I moved from being a practicing product designer into service design. I've been very active in the service design network community as well. Been to many conferences and speaking and workshopping and those kind of things. And then at some point I moved from sort of the classical service design for service industry, like banks and insurance companies and those kind of corporates, to the space of urban design. So I'm now very active as a service designer in the urban design space, which basically means that I help urban planners, architects, real estate developers, but also governments and municipalities to design cities for people, and that always entails a lot of thinking around the role of nature and sustainability in those cities. I fundamentally believe that to design cities for people, you need to design cities that embrace nature and that provide a place for nature and biodiversity, because that's what people need, and that's what nature needs. So that has been my work the past, let's say, 5 years. And I'm looking forward to show you some of those cases later on. Just like Leonard, I've worked in many different forms and shapes. I've been a teacher, consultant, entrepreneur, coach. That's a really good point, Leonard. I also don't really care how. I care more about what I'm doing and bringing value. But great to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
Great. So, sorry. So let's talk. So we asked our participants about their level of knowledge about the concepts of circular economy and sustainability. Most of you are comfortable with these concepts, while others have some knowledge about these concepts. So we invited Luciana, the sustainability expert, to help us dig deeper and to get a bit more clarity on what these concepts are all about. So, Luciana, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Elsa. So for me, sustainability, I always remember the old, but still current for me, a definition of sustainable development that comes from the Brundtland reports that some of you might remember or not. Maybe you were not born in 1987. That says that sustainable development is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. I'm sorry about my voice. I'm trying to speak louder as I can. But so for me, this is still a very valid definition of sustainability or sustainable development. And it encompasses three pillars that I believe that cannot be left out when we talk about sustainability. The environmental pillar, the social and the economic. There's also the governance pillar that many people talk about, and it's important. But I would maybe focus on these three as a beginning of this conversation. So the environmental pillar, because of course we have to live within the planetary boundaries to respect nature, to try to have a minimum impact or even contribute to a positive impact on nature. And the social, of course, it has to do with the stakeholders that are the communities, the people. And so nothing can be done without or against this pillar as well. And economic, that also relates to how our economic systems being developed and how distribution of income, how poverty issues, inequality are being also addressed. So I don't think that we can speak about sustainable development or sustainable solution if one of these aspects is being neglected. And in terms of circular economy, which is one of the parts, let's say, of sustainability and sustainable development. Well, I looked at the last circularity gap report from 2024. This is a report that is being done, and the last 2 years was done with a consultant company, and also with it's coordinated by the Circular Economy Foundation. And they say that the volume of discussions and debates and articles around circular economy has tripled over the last 5 years. And this is really relevant. It shows us how the importance of this topic of circular economy. And while I cannot say that there is a fixed definition of circular economy, for instance, this report talks about or presents circular economy as an economic model that maximizes benefits for people and minimizes the pressure on planet's life support systems. We also have the ISO standards, the International Standards Organization. They are now working on standards for circular economy. And from top of my mind, I know that they are working at least in 5 different standards. And one of the standards that talks about vocabulary principles, they kind of agreed on an international level that circular economy is an economic system that uses a systemic approach to maintain a circular flow of resources by recovering, retaining, or adding to their value while contributing to sustainable development. Just to say that this is not published yet, so they are still in the final stages, but this is what is being discussed in the international level. And so as you can see, there is no fixed still definition of circular economy. There are other organizations as well, NGOs, government organizations that have their own definition. But what is really important, in my opinion, is that each sector, its organization reflects about their own challenges and opportunities in terms of circular economy. So as a start, I would say that, and also mention that it's an area that is gaining momentum in the last years. Even the World Economic Forum has stated that it's the business opportunity of our time. And so there are a lot of opportunities. So we cannot look at these topics as impediments to development, but truly as drivers of development and economic growth. And so there can be a lot of jobs being created, opportunities for many sectors. And I believe that this is a really important discussion that we are having, and a good initiative from SDN to raise also the awareness of this community to think about it. And in terms of circular economy, we can talk also about some principles. You know that before, you might remember that we had the 3 R's, the 3 R rules, like reduce, reuse, and recycle. Now there is a lot of debates, and we are adding more R's to the equation. We are talking about refuse, reduce, rethink, reuse, repair, refurbish, remanufacture, repurpose, recycle, recover. Although I don't want to go into the detail of all of this, because also it depends on every organization to define which ones make sense to them. But I think for the designers, the most important one is the rethink, and rethink about products, about circular business models. How can we redesign a product or a service with circularity in mind? Is there a better way to do this? Is there an opportunity to create new habits, a new consumption, a new service around these needs, really focus on the needs? So I think this can be, or these are, let's say, it's for me the most important one for the designers, to help organizations think about, rethink about how to address that need that is being presented to them, but with a circular mind. And maybe I will pause here and as an introduction, I think it's enough. I don't know
Thank
if
you.
any of my colleagues want to compliment.
Thank you, Luciana. This was the perfect first talk to set the mood for for the rest of our session. I think we all gained more clarity, and you gave us some food for thought. You talked about how this is the opportunity of our lifetime. You talk about the 3 R's. I have a question now. That is, and considering this environmental challenge that we are currently facing, what trends have emerged related to sustainable design? And also there is the digital passport, product passport that is being discussed. Would you like to add something to this?
Yes, okay. I think that's in terms of trends, we see that there are some trends that that are world needs, let's say, or societal needs that are related to climate change, biodiversity loss, how to value human capital, how to enable sustainable consumption and production, and also how to respect human rights and how to communicate, because we cannot live anymore in a world where we have green or social washing. So how can we communicate better so that there are decisions being made from a consumer perspective or from a value chain perspective that are more aligned with sustainability goals. So I believe that these trends really drive what can be the opportunities for designers or for products and services. So I believe that we can think about design, having this in mind. How can we design for recycle? How can we design a product or a service, especially a product, to be recyclable? How can we are also seeing trends about designing products that have a specific amount or specific recycled content, percentage of recycled content. How can we also design so that products are more reusable, repairable, durable? So we are talking about some characteristics that we may think about when we talk about a sustainable product or service already. So how can we help organizations design these products that are more durable, recyclable, reusable, repairable? And how do we communicate as well? So we need to have information. We need to gather information on a life cycle perspective to be able to communicate and to make choices, because when I was mentioning climate change, biodiversity, many other trends, water scarcity is also a trend that is being um, talked about very recently, also in the EU policies, not just water quality but water scarcity. So what do we know about all of this? That sometimes we need to make decisions. We need to address the trade-offs. So how can we balance all of these environmental dimensions, and also, as I was mentioning before, and related to the 3 pillars of sustainable development: economic, social, and an environmental pillar? How can we also balance all of these and the trade-offs that we have? So I believe that the role here and the trend for the designer is really to help to rethink these economic systems and all of these opportunities for having better products and services.
What a challenge.
Yes, it's a great challenge. Thank you, Luciana. I don't know if any of our guests would like to add something, or we talk later.
I didn't mention about the digital product passports. You also asked about it. So maybe some people are not familiar with what it will be. So the digital product passport is a vehicle of transferring information along the value chain that is now being introduced by an upcoming regulation that is called the Eco Design for Sustainable Products Regulation. So some of you might be aware of the Green Deal, of the EU Green Deal. It's the EU economic strategy for Europe that was proposed by this European Commission. And the EU Green Deal had several main objectives or strategies, and one was circular economy. And within the EU Green Deal, then we have the Circular Economy Action Plan, and one of the key activities or initiatives from the Circular Economy Action Plan is this regulation: make sustainable products the norm. This is what is envisioned by the European Commission. And so There is a draft almost in the last stages of the development of this regulatory process. It's called, this new regulation will be called Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation. And basically what says is that every product entering the EU market will need to have two types of eco-design requirements: performance requirements and information requirements. So every product will need to comply. So this is mandatory. Will need to comply with minimum standards in terms of sustainability. This can be related to minimum recycled content, durability, recyclability, presence of some substances, water footprint. So there are many criteria to be able to put the product on the market. This is still to be defined product group by product group. So the other type of eco-design requirement is information requirements. So every product will need to disclose information about that product in terms of sustainability as well. And the way that it will communicate this information is via the so-called digital product passports. So it will be something that it will be attached to the products or to the documentation that will really say what are these sustainability criteria or indicators or information that will allow, first of all, the consumers to make more informed choices. Second, the government authorities to scan the products and to do their compliance checks, and the value chain to be able to receive relevant information about the product and use it or recycle in a proper manner. So these are the three main stakeholders, the audience, let's say the target audience of this digital product passport: consumers, authorities, and the value chain. So I think this is really a game changer for the industry, and I'm really excited about how this will develop.
Right. Thank you, Luciana. This is a great challenge, and as designers, we have a lot to think about in the future. So now let's proceed to the first case of our session. Leonard, who's been deeply involved.
Sorry to interrupt, but maybe we can just ask a question that we have here in the chat, just to clarify a point that Luciana was talking about.
Okay.
Luciana, can you please clarify if the Thelma is asking if the digital product passport reach only food products or rich food products or only non-food?
Foods is exempt for the digital product passport. Food, feed, and medicines, medicinal products are not on the scope. So it will be for, this is the idea, the ambition. This is a very bold ambition, let me say, from the European Commission, to have all products entering the EU markets to have these eco-design requirements. But this will not be done, of course, from one day to another. So that's why they are working on a working plan as well. So, and everything will be decided product group by product group according to priorities. Food packaging is not under also the scope of this regulation. There's another regulation that talks about packaging. It's called Packaging and Packaging Waste Regulation. And that is a regulation that will define all sustainability criteria related to packaging.
Very nice. Thanks, Luciana.
Luisa,
Thank you,
do we have any more questions?
No, that's all.
I'm sorry, as I'm presenting, I can't see the questions. So if there are any questions, please interrupt me. And so let's proceed to to Leonard, as I was saying, he's been involved in sustainable product development initiatives, and he will be introducing to us the Flip Floppy, I love this name, the Flip Floppy project. So Leonard, it's your turn. I don't know, do you like to share something?
Yes, thank you.
Interrupt.
Let me try to pull up the screen here. That should be this one. Tell me if you can see this.
Yes.
Yes.
Cool. So yeah, thank you, Luciana. I think this was really insightful and giving a very good broad perspective about the challenge. And I think I completely agree with you. It is the biggest challenge. It's the challenge of our generation. Now trying to solve what has been brought down the history, and we find ourselves in this place and with this challenge. And I think it is something that everyone should be aware of, and everyone should be trying to make decisions having this in mind. And everyone in their professional life will need to make decisions. And the best what we can do, sometimes we cannot have the perfect solution, but when we have the challenge and the tools in mind, we can always in our professional life address these challenges with the best possible direction. And I think this will already help a lot when everyone is doing that. And so therefore it is great that it is a topic that is being discussed more broadly, more widely, in different channels, such as this one. And it will really require a mindset change in well, not only designers, but designers have a lot to do because they're the creative engine of the system. So bringing it from this very broad perspective now to something like deeply on the ground, like boots in the mud, literally, and seeing what is the effect and how can circular economy be implemented in a very specific case, and what can it mean and what are the challenges. So I'll take you through this. Well, we all know plastic. Plastic is great. It's fantastic. It's versatile. It's colorful. It's actually, this is a real photo of a real shop, and I needed to tone it down, so I have put a gray filter over it because it was too flashy. So, and it has lots of great purposes and uses. I'm an industrial design engineer. I have worked with plastic. I do really appreciate plastic for its qualities, but looking from a circular perspective, it has very big challenges because we are producing about 400 million tons per year. 14% or less is being actually recycled worldwide, and 50% of all of that is single-use plastic. Plastic cup, you drink something, you throw it away, and it ends up somewhere. In organized places, you don't see it that much. But much of the world isn't organized. Much of the designers and thinkers and people who are sitting in places that are organized. But this happens. Plastic is collected or not collected or rudimentarily collected, burned, buried, thrown into the ocean. I've lived several years in Kenya, and service systems for collecting your trash do not always work that well. And I'm very sure, and I've seen it in other places as well, it's not always working well. And even in Europe, we see it is failing sometimes. And when there is not a planned service continuation of the product life, then all kinds of things happen. And as a designer, we should be aware of what can happen and how things are being treated, in how products are being treated, and how the end of life looks, not only in the most optimum cases. So when we look at LCA, for example, LCA of a plastic cup, people say, well, a plastic cup is sometimes better than using a glass cup, because the energy that you need to heat the water, to wash it nicely and cleanly, is taking more energy than the plastic itself. Fair enough. But if your plastic cup ends up in the ocean, it's worse. And how do we evaluate that? So in Kenya, much of the coast is mangroves. Mangroves are like the nurseries of the ocean. They absorb plentiful of CO2, little fish, little crabs, they grow there. Their lungs. And when we look at this, it's not a good place for a nursery, in my opinion. And this is real, right? This is not like the worst place or something. It's just like lots of the coast looks like that because there is no effective systems to take care of the trash. So Ali Iskander is one of the residents in Lamu Island, a small island of the Kenyan coast. He's a boat builder, he's a fisherman, and he's very engaged. He found that this is not the way how it can be. And together with a few other people, he came up with the idea of building a boat out of toothbrushes. Well, not really toothbrushes, but plastic waste. And he found supporters for this. And he said, like, well, it is difficult. And I agree, it's difficult. I heard about this story in 2017 when I was just arrived in Kenya for some time, and I thought these people are crazy. They have no clue what they're getting themselves into. Plastic is great, but recycled plastic is, wow, so great. And then how are you going to build a huge boat out of this? So I met up with them and I asked them about their challenges. They were exactly how I expected them. And I said, well, you know, let me try to help you. Maybe we can. And so I got involved, and it has been a crazy journey. It's we managed, so you can see the boat here. But yeah, it starts with this. It starts with a beach full of trash. And this is one beach of Lamu coast. On a beach cleaning day, we harvested 9 tons of plastic trash here. 30% of that is flip-flops. I'll come to that later. So we had a lot of resources, but now what to do with those resources? You need to recycle them, you need to sort them, you need to clean them. So we devised all kinds of ways on how to actually establish it, because recycling industry in Europe does exist, and they have recipes and they have processes, but there it didn't exist. We didn't have a blueprint to work off, and we didn't have $6 million to invest in a recycling facility, state of the art. So we needed to do with what we had, and we learned along the way with lots of involvement, making lots of mistakes, trying to see what other people were doing, but we managed. We found a way how to sort it for colors, for materials, how to process it, how to dry it, how to clean it. We even were able to buy some rudimentary plastic extruders. Not all that new, but they worked. And we got to the point where we actually were making lumber, planks, and yeah, product that you can use. So it turns out that lumber for boat building is becoming worldwide a challenge, because big trees are difficult to find, are difficult to come by. And in traditional boat building, you don't only have to find a big tree, but you also have to have the tree with the right curvature for the ribs. Well, let me tell you, that's difficult. So sometimes for building a boat, they can have a year searching for the right trees. collecting them. It's a lot of investment. So plastic lumber came in there quite well because the traditional boat builders can use their tools that they have been using for centuries, their skills that they have been honing for centuries. They can use that experience with plastic in a very, very similar way. And so the boat building community was really happy because they suddenly brought out, they were brought out of that challenge that they had into a place where they said, like, hey, you know, we can try this. So on the outside, we put recycled plastic planks. They look brown because they have a bit of colorant in there and some wood chips, but they're real plastic. All of this boat is plastic, with the exception of the mast, because we just didn't dare. On the outside, we cover it with flip-flops. So, well, yeah, you cannot see this properly because of the now you can, I think. So this is flip-flops. Flip-flops, as I said, are consisting about 30% of the waste that arrives at the beaches, because they're light, because they're easily discarded. And we work together with some artists that cut the nice parts out of the flip-flops that are usable, cut them in rectangles and puzzle them together to make this really, really colorful, intricate sheets. And these sheets we put on the outside of the boat, and they have the function of making it waterproof and making it nice and attractive, because a boat like this, colorful, communicates obviously a very different story than if it's plain and brown like that. So then we put the boat, the plastic trash, basically back in the ocean. And we sailed. We sailed it all the way from Lamu to Zanzibar and back. We sailed around Lake Victoria, and we stopped in all the little places, in all the big places, and we talked to school children, we talked to local entrepreneurs, we talked to municipalities, governments, from small to big. We wanted to talk to all of them. We wanted to show what can be done, and we organized events. We showed recycling equipment. We nudged people into changing legislation, because in the end, something needs to change, and we wanted to show we can change things. So the flip-floppy stands for ending single-use plastics, because a single use is just no way. In nature there is no single use. In a confined environment, you cannot have single use, because you end up with everything. Well, it doesn't work, right? So we need to find a way on how to make circular economy work for all of it. And we believe in action. Talk is good, but we need to do things. And sometimes while doing things, you do the wrong thing. You learn, you do it over again. But it'll inspire other people to see that action is actually possible and doable. And we humans, we need to do things, and that's what we're good at. And we believe in local solutions, because it is great to have a big plan, and I think we should have people with a vision and leaders that really direct the right thing. But we need local solutions on the ground, because the challenges in this corner of the world are different than in that corner of the world. It's a global problem, but the solutions might differ from here to there. And we should learn all from each other. We should influence each other. We should try to learn the best practices and apply them in a slightly different way on our own challenges. And so that is what the flip-floppy wants to do. So now we have collected about 200 tons of plastic in the last 2 years. We have an active collectors network of people that are collecting actively waste in the environment, in their neighborhoods, and they bring it to us, and we can pay them a little share for the plastic waste. So we create a circular economy in that way. It's not entirely circular yet, but we're moving there. And we are really proud that people can earn somewhat of a contribution to their living by making the environment for everyone more livable. So we're also applying that to all kinds of other things. We're not only making boats, we're making furniture. So this furniture that you see here is traditional furniture, hand carved, all in plastic. And we have started a boat building course. And this boat building course is not only men, it's also women, which is unheard of in that kind of remote area. This is very close to Somalia. So it is a big change, but people are really enthusiastic about it. They're really happy that they finally can give back and contribute and learn skills that are much needed. So in 2017 in Kenya, there was Judy Wakungu, then Minister of Environment, enacted a ban of plastic bags. And that really worked well. The environment got cleaner. And this is the president, Kenyatta, visiting the boat at the UNEP. And he put it even further. He said, like, well, all single-use plastic is forbidden in national parks. And all of these things work, but we need to action, we need to talk, we need to influence, we need to show that it's possible. Because if we don't show it's possible, then nobody will guide policies by the options that we have. So I want to close with the words of Ali Skandar. He said, "The Dhow was the first means of communication before all others were invented. Telephone, mail, whatever. The boat, the dhow, was first. And that's what we use it for, as a means of communication, to inspire others and to show what is possible." Thank you.
Thank you, Leonard. I think we are all amazed.
Well, it's difficult to see, but yeah, this is a model of the real boat, and it's rigged differently than a normal. So that's when you look at the picture, the sail looks different than a normal, what we're used to in Europe, because the mast is differently rigged.
That's so nice, Leonard. Yeah, we are. I think that we are all really amused. I really like the phrase that you said, that nature is not single use, right? So we need to learn from that. I think that's an insight, and also that's very inspiring, because you had to have much courage to face this big challenge and take action on it. And I think that that's a reflection, at least for me, that our responsibility as designers to take this step and shape the industry as well, and that needs courage and action. That's very inspiring. Thank you for sharing.
Hands-on is
Yeah.
really in this project.
Yeah, it is a hands-on project, and we didn't know where we would be getting when we started. We didn't envision the full aspect and the full complexity of what we were facing, but also not what we achieved. So from the idea of building a boat, it became a network. It became an essential service in that area. It became a teaching hub. So it's so much more once you start actually kicking something off. And we just need to overcome our fear of change and sometimes try something. And as designers, we're curious. We want to learn. We want to improve. We want to get on and get it better. And I think that's the message. Like, let's try something. If it doesn't work, let's try something slightly different until we find something that works.
Certainly.
And obviously, on the big picture, there's all kinds of guidelines, tools that can help us to do this in the best way possible. But on the ground, we still need to do it on a daily basis and try it over.
Yeah, it's time to rethink the way we do things. So it was a really insightful talk, Leonard. Thank you. And in addition to build beautiful boats, this is contributing to save the planet, to environmental sustainability and economic development. So it's a very complete project. So it was really inspiring. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Well, it's important, and I think it shows as how complex the system is, right? As designers, we think of a packaging for a product, and well, because it's practical, we'll think it in plastic. But we need to understand that the systems are different in different locations, and that the effects of what we are coming up with, we need to think them through as much as possible. And I think that is something that it becomes increasingly clear. Like one challenge we face there, for example, is packaging bags. So in that region, you get lots of cement bags, for example, that come in there for construction. Now the cement bags, they are not going to go back somewhere. They're going to stay there. Now what we find is that the manufacturers of the cement bags add additives to these bags to make them as cheap as possible, while still lasting at least until this construction site. But then within short time, they degenerate in the sun. They are polypropylene, so the sun will eat it up, and with the additives in there, it might even go faster. So when you're not on time collecting them and trying to put them into a recycling system, you'll get materials that are not even recyclable anymore. So when we show that these systems are there, and what are the mistakes in designing the system as itself, then we can with that use that to design better policies. Because if there is extended manufacturer or extended producer's responsibility, then you can say, well, you know, there needs to be certain baselines, like with the European product passport, that we say there is a certain base standard of product quality that we need to adhere to, so to be able to at least ensure a certain circularity. And yeah, that information that's often missing at this moment, especially in new emerging economies.
Yeah. Thank you, Leonard. So I think it's time to move to our final guest, Erik. So Erik is an expert in sustainable urban development. And so welcome, Erik. We are ready for your presentation. Thank you.
Quite a challenge after Leonard's presentation, I must say. It was very impressive and very inspiring, and it's great what you're doing there. Also, I'm a passionate sailor and boatsman, so it's even more more relevant. I will share my screen. Let's see if that works. If all is well, you can now see my screen. Yes, so that was really inspiring, and it touches on many things that I do in my work, and especially what I want to touch a little bit more on, I think, is the notion of what can we as service designers do in an economy that is shifting from a transactional sort of product mindset to a more circular value mindset, right? Where we don't buy a product to consume it, or we should not buy a product to consume it. We should buy value, and that value is not consumed in the sense that it goes away, but it's circular. It flows back into the system, and that really requires a lot of service design thinking. That's really a change in mindset. My work is all about cities and how to design cities that are more future-proof and that are more sustainable, and that is all about moving beyond the material, moving beyond the artifacts of buildings and infrastructure, and really moving into services. And what I love actually about Leonard's talk is also that you're not looking only at the material that you use to buy a boat, but you're looking at the whole ecosystem of boat building and the community values. You're looking at how to collect this waste, how to process this waste, how to then change the process of boat building. Then it turns into a teaching vehicle. It turns into a communication vehicle. So what you really see in the circular economy is that you're really shifting from a product mindset to a service mindset, and that requires a different type of design. And I think as a community and a service design network, that is what we're here for, and that is why we're so relevant for sustainable work. Anyway, my work is very much about what I call blue urbanism. And blue urbanism is really where cities touch water. So I do a lot of work on the interface of cities and rivers, cities and oceans. And that is a very interesting sort of field where a lot comes together, where cities meet water. So this is all about coastal resilience. So with climate change, you see rising seawater levels, but you also see a change in the chemistry of water, acidification, those kind of things, a loss of biodiversity. There's a lot to be designed around coasts. I do waterfront experience design, so quite a few of my projects are about redesigning and reimagining how people experience urban waterfronts, not so much from an architecture perspective. I'm not an architect, but really from an experience perspective, from a psychology perspective. How do communities come together around waterfronts? How can the waterfront become a public space, a commons that people can enjoy? Also, it's living with seasonal flooding. So a lot of the projects I do are in Southeast Asia, where there's a lot of flooding happening because of rains, because of climate change. And how do you live with this flooding? Rivers can go up 3 meters every year. How do you, when river life is your sustenance, when you're a fisherman or you have a farm next to a river, how do you deal with that flood? And how do you cope with those annual changes? And there's a lot to learn from history and from local communities and the way they mitigate these facts of life. Basically, it's part of their life. So floating homes, stilt homes, working on water, and those kind of things. I do a lot of work in water mobility. That's also where my work, of course, touches Leonard work. So how can we create public transport ecosystems that move away from congested land and congested roads and cities that are uncomfortable, they're warm, they're congested, they're polluted, and move towards water and use boats, use more boats to transport people and to move about cities and to reach places that normally we couldn't reach. So part of my work is also about not so much designing the technology, the boats, there's lots of expertise there, but really designing the water mobility experience, the public transport over water as a customer journey, and how can you design that as an experience that makes sense to people. And then there's the blue economy, the way we get food from the ocean, the transport, shipping, logistics, tourism, agriculture. All these things require the ocean, and we have to design our relationship with the ocean in a way that we sustain it rather than then use it up. And then I do some pro bono work in whale protection as well. Whales are amazing creatures that sequester a lot of carbon, produce a lot of oxygen. And I work for a couple of NGOs that protect whales. One of them is specialized in providing solutions to prevent ship strikes between whales and large transport ships. That's one of the main causes of death for whales. So that's also part of my work. And I have a case later around marine protection. So the real challenge I'm working on, and as a service designer, what I put my teeth in, future-proof cities are really cities that are they're regenerative. Huh? They don't consume nature, but they regenerate nature. They're biodiverse, they're healthy, they're inclusive and prosperous. I really believe that notion of healthy cities requires a lot of design thinking and innovation. Then if you, I believe that when you feel at home in a city, you'll notice that you feel sort of in symbiosis with your environment. You feel at home and you feel like you have a role to play. You feel like you're not just a spectator, you're actually part of the environment. So to design those kind of places, you cannot do that only by designing buildings and infrastructure. Then you get this empty city. You have to really design that from the perspective of human well-being and behavior and interactions. It's much more around, I believe it's much more around psychology and experiences and services than it is about artifacts and buildings. So I always work together with real estate developers and architects, and I provide that human perspective. And I always imagine how people enter a certain square. How did this family end up at those stairs? Where did they come from? Where are they going? What are they experiencing? How do they feel? So it's always that human perspective. And then you come to the notion of sustainable cities. I really think sustainability is all about how people behave and how we interact. And I mean, if you look at the two talks we had before, you really see that both Luciana and Leonard talked about the how humans interact with consumption, with the stuff we buy, the stuff we own. How do we interface with our possessions, with consumption? That is a psychological challenge, and I believe as service designers, that is something we can work on in a very positive, constructive way. And the same is true for cities. If you want cities to be sustainable, you have to get people out of their cars. You have to get people out of their heated, closed homes. You have to get people out of, just being in air-conditioned spaces in the tropics. You have to get people away from throwing stuff in the street. It's all about behavior. It's all about behavior design. So sustainability for me in the general discourse is a little bit too much focused on technology and not enough focused on how people behave and interact and why they do what they do. And that's where I believe service design has a really, really crucial role to play in design for sustainability. We need a lot of technology. We need a lot of new types of energy. We need new types of materials, new types of recycling. But if people don't adopt these changes, and if they don't embrace these changes and see it as something positive that they can engage with, and that they feel as that they play a role in it, then it will never scale. It will never be adopted. So in that sense, sustainability is all about human beings and how we behave and how we think. So how I look at cities, cities are, you could say that cities have hardware. This hardware is the architecture and the infrastructure and those kind of things. But cities also have software. And the software is the people and the interactions and the experiences and how we behave, how we go from home to work, how we shop, how we entertain ourselves, how we spend our free time, how we want to raise our kids, those kind of things. And I think the one is a more city as a product, and the other one is more city as a service, if you want to compare those two. And I look very much at the city as a service, but that does require that hardware. You need that hardware to start engaging with. So in the middle, you could say, is urban experience innovation. It sort of bridges the gap between those two words. And so if you compare the city as product with city as service, the city as product is tangible. If you look at architecture, it's very much about the aesthetic, about what you see. It's about composition. It's about solving functional issues. You build for 30 years to come. It's very building centered, very hardware centered, and it's a bit of a top-down mindset. You put buildings in place for people. Obviously, architects and urban planners are more and more trying to engage with communities and trying to co-create, but still, these are huge decisions with huge financial consequences, and things happen to cities beyond our grasp, beyond our influence. Then if you look at the city as service, it's much more the tangible sort of infrastructure and buildings is like a stage where the intangible happens, people meeting each other, street artists, all kinds of, the family that was sitting there at the water. So I always think of that hardware as a stage for the intangible to happen and to unfold. It's very multisensorial. It's focusing on the experiential, and you don't design just for 30. You don't have a building and then it's finished. If you think of the city as service, the great thing is that everything is constantly in transition. You can constantly adapt and change and influence, and you're constantly redesigning, and people get a role in that design. They start to play a role in the development of the city. And if you look at, I think modern urbanism is all about that. It's all about giving people a role to play in that city and to empower them to co-design the city together and not let the city be designed by others. So it's very much focused on outcomes, not so much functionality, but an outcome can also be playing with my children in the park, or walking my dog, or meeting a neighbor, or those kind of things, more emotional, experiential outcomes. And it's more bottom up, it's more owned by people. So I believe that whole sort of paradigm of thinking of the city as a service is a huge opportunity for service designers, and we can play a very big role in that. And actually, most of the big architecture firms that I work with used to be very building centered, and now they're becoming more user centered, and they're involving design research in their practice, and that's great to see. Same is true for large real estate developers that are more and more sort of embracing this kind of mindset. Then what can you work on? There's so much to work on as a service designer in cities. There's obviously the whole notion of regeneration and resilience, climate resilience, but also biodiversity in cities, urban agriculture, bringing nature into cities, and making sure that cities are healthy places to live in and to be one with nature. A lot of the work I do is around inclusion and community. So how to involve local communities in redevelopment projects, and how to make sure that you don't redesign cities from a sort of a Western top-down mindset, but especially in the projects I work on in Southeast Asia, it's very much about how can you empower local communities to redesign the city for themselves, and use that local wisdom, use that power of history, sorry. Then a lot of the work I do is about accessibility and fluidity, which you could say is mobility design, crowd management, design for walkability. How do people navigate spaces? How can you increase walkability in the tropics, where people love to be inside because it's air conditioned, but that's not future proof. At some point, we have to live with climate. We have to live with heat, and how can you create natural cooling that gets people outside of those air conditioned spaces into squares, into parks. but also how do you design mobility of the future? Like I said, I work on quite a bit of water mobility solutions, those kind of things. Then health and well-being, how can we create cities that are actually healthy and that are psychologically healthy, but also physically healthy for people, with clean air, with the right kind of humidity, with the right kind of sound levels. There's a lot around cities that that is not necessarily healthy for people. And there's a lot to be designed there. And then finally, intelligence and convenience. You could say that this is the discourse of the smart city. And I put it last because for me, smart city is really a means to solve all these other issues. It's not a goal in itself. There's a lot of discourse around how cities become smarter, and then through that smartness, they solve everything for us. But what I've seen in a lot of the smart city solutions is that they're not solutions for people. They're solutions for big companies, gathering data, or wanting to make money. If you look at the people in the street, they often don't really benefit from smartness, and that is because the smart technological solutions are not designed necessarily for those people in mind. They're designed with a commercial business model in mind. However, if you understand what motivates people and how people navigate cities and how they live their lives in cities, there's a lot of beautiful things you can do with technology, and there's a lot of really interesting solutions in the smart city domain that actually help people live their lives. So now there's two cases that I like to show you very briefly, because of course we're running a bit out of time maybe. Both of them are in Thailand. One case is we're doing an experience master plan for a big real estate developer, and they're developing an island in the Chapria River, and this island suffers from seasonal flooding. And that seasonal flooding means that every year part of the island completely floods, and there's local communities living with that flooding. They're fishermen and they're traders, and they have ways to deal with that seasonal flooding. They live in stilt homes, and when the flooding gets too bad, they go higher up and they live together in certain homes, or they move away temporarily from the island. And my client wants to showcase basically this type of water resilience and flood resilience that is very much inherent to the Thai culture, and sort of take it into the 21st century and see if we can use that wisdom from the past and combine it with modern technologies, and combine it with placemaking and with development and regional development, but also economic development, and see if we can take all these insights from these people and create an island that is future-proof. And future-proof means living with water, certain types of new types of mobility. So there's no cars on this island, for example. It's all water mobility. Everything will be electric, a passive energy system, regenerative agriculture, increase of biodiversity. All these things are part of this ambition, and we're helping this client, basically realize this ambition. And what you see in the top picture is that requires a lot of co-creation and collaboration. And I guess that's one of my key points in this presentation, that if you want to design cities that are sustainable, first of all, you need to really look at history and the practices of local communities and their wisdom. There's so much to learn from culture and from community, and that's again what I loved in Leonard's presentation. These people know how to build boats. It's ingrained in their DNA. They have this local wisdom. You have to work with that, and as a designer, you have to understand this, and you have to take it as a foundation for your work. So that was one really key learning in this project. But also, if you want to design for resilient cities, you have to design with climate change and with this water, and you have to sort of take nature as it is and not try to fight it. I think as a Western paradigms are very much trying to oppose sea level rises and trying to oppose these negative influences. And when it gets too hot, we go inside and we put on the air conditioning and those kind of things. We have to learn much more to move along with these kind of flows and not fight them, because it's impossible to fight them. We have to see them as signs from nature that nature wants to collaborate with us, and nature needs our help maybe, and we need nature's help. We need to find that symbiosis. So the whole philosophy around this project is living with water, not against water, but really with water, and try to make that water part of our lives. We use a lot of nature-based solutions, which basically means that you try to learn from nature, and you try to be inspired by what nature does in terms of carbon sequestering, in terms of cooling, in terms of water cleaning through fish and algae. You use all these principles to create a better life for humans. If you let nature do its thing, nature can do great things for us. You just need to give it room. You need to give it space to do its thing. And then finally, sustainable urbanism really requires this ecosystemic approach. And what I mean by that is that you have all these different specialists and consultants and different, experts, and they have to really all work together. So a lot of my work is about designing the processes and the interventions that align all these people together around a shared purpose, and make sure that they bring out the best and that they collaborate. And I think, again, that's where service design may have a really important role to play in designing the processes of collaboration to arrive at these well-designed ecosystems. So that is one project, and the other project is similar in a lot of things. It's a marine hospital, basically it's a research center, a marine hospital to rehabilitate wounded dugongs and sea turtles in the south of Thailand. And this is a public-private collaboration between Government of Thailand and Blue Carbon Society. And what we're trying to do, initially the assignment was to build a research center where wounded dugongs can be rehabilitated and make sure that they can recover and put back into the sea. Dugongs are these big sea cows, and they're becoming very rare in the Andaman Sea. They need a lot of protection. The population is dwindling, and if we don't do anything, they will disappear. There's not enough seagrass to eat, and so the assignment was to basically design the experience plan for this research center. But it actually turned out that the assignment was much more to bring together a lot of stakeholders around that challenge, which was the local community, fishermen, local university, tourists, the government officials on a national level and on a local level, and really the project turned into designing this ecosystem, designing these partnerships, and finding common ground to really work on something that was way bigger than just the center. It became more a regional development project. Where we developed, where the idea became to really design a conservation tourist destination for tourists and researchers and academic community and officials all around the world to collaborate on that conservation purpose. So in that sense, it's not about the building, it's about designing the ecosystem and designing that public-private partnership that is actually much more sustainable than a purely public or purely private endeavor. And conservation is all about collaboration. And again, community is key. We worked with local fishermen, and they knew everything about these dugongs. They knew exactly where the seagrass was growing and where it wasn't growing. They knew exactly what the quality of the seawater was. They knew so much just from being with that environment. And if you can work with them, there's a huge source of wisdom. So that was really beautiful project, and I hope it's in progress, and I hope to tell much more about it in a later stage. But this is where we are right now. So that was it. Thank you so much, and I see some questions.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing, Erik. Thank you so much.
Cool.
I love that the co-creating the city with the community. I think that's a shift in the mindset, and it's amazing to see the service design get into this architecture world. We know the relation between product and architecture, but it's not for me at least, it was not so clear the relationship between service design and architecture, and that's really inspiring.
I really love the concept of a city as a service, because
that to me was a highlight too.
Yeah, we used to think about city as a canvas where we put services, but we never think about the city as a service itself. So I think it's really a game changing. I'll stay with that concept. I'll have to think about it.
Yeah. So in services, value is co-created between the service provider and the service user, so to say. And if you think of the city as a service, it's very much about the city is a platform for value co-creation between citizens and maybe providers, government officials, companies, whoever. But it's very much a platform for value co-creation. I think also, it works nice.
There's a quote that I wrote down as an inspiring quote for me, is that the sustainable cities require new technologies, new beauties, but also new ways of interactions, right? So that's the key takeaway to me. Thank you very much, Erik. Sophia.
I think it goes back to the beginning where we basically established that the most important R is the rethinking, huh?
Exactly, it totally links to the other talks, right?
What Luciana was saying in the beginning. Yes.
It is all connected.
Cool.
So
also
maybe
rethink the partnerships as well. We think how we can collaborate with each other, with NGOs, business, architects, designers, engineers, scientists, regulators. How can we all get together and partner to make things moving?
Yeah, exactly. And that requires a lot of empathy and respect for all these people that are all doing their job from their perspective.
Yes.
And when you are lucky enough to be in a position that you can bring all these perspectives together, then that is quite a responsibility, and you have to earn people's respect. You have to earn they have to allow you to do that kind of facilitation.
Exactly. So maybe moving on to the Q&A part. We've challenged you to ask our guests some questions on Eventbrite forum, and very interesting questions came up. Feel free to complete each other's answers and share your perspective. So maybe first question, we can start with this one. How can design be a part of the problem, and how it can be a part of the solution? If you can point out specific examples and legislation.
I can start if you want.
Yes,
so, please. I think on a personal level, maybe the question was more how can we do as a citizen to embrace these principles. I think it's as was also said before, we need to rethink the way that we are buying, how we are buying things, what's the origin, the packaging. We should ask information. We can propose changes as well. So it's a lot about also personal responsibility when we are making our purchase decisions. And since we are not that engaged in the as a consumer, let's say, in the design phase of the products or services, we can also pay more attention to how we reuse, how we recycle as well. So this is, I think, on a personal level, what can be done. At an organizational level, so this was also part of the question. I think it was also mentioned by these two examples that we need to listen to stakeholders. So any organization that wants to embrace on a circularity journey or a sustainability journey, the first thing that I would recommend to do is to do a stakeholder consultation. So define who are the stakeholders. So the ones that are impacted by the organization or that can impact the organization. Who are the stakeholders? Who are the main stakeholders? And then what are their needs, their aspirations? What are their concerns? And from that point, the organization can build a strategy and can develop a plan to address these concerns, and think about also how to implement, execute, and measure the plan, engaging the value chain and engaging stakeholders. Nothing can be done alone, as we are just said. So I believe that this is important to think about suppliers, customers, communities, our internal stakeholders. When I say ours, because I'm talking about an organization perspective, like the employees, what do they feel, how they want to contribute as well. So what are the skills that are needed? Because sometimes there are also skills that are lacking. So this would be my takeaway on what can be done. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Luciana. I don't know if Erik and Leonard want to give their perspective to complete the Luciana's answer.
I think Luciana's answer was very complete. This is a perfect answer.
Yeah, I would agree to that. I think
Okay.
the design is always the problem because it's the source of all of what is around us, but it's also the solution because it can solve the problems that are around us as well to some extent.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's an all-encompassing.
Yeah,
exactly.
it touches a bit on what we discussed before around working with all these different stakeholders. I think the one thing we need to teach design students of the future is to be respectful of other stakeholders and to understand where they are coming from, and to really not only be empathic towards end users, but be empathic towards partners in the ecosystem. And that is sometimes lacking. Sometimes students or young designers have a bit this attitude of, I can solve everything, I'm going to change the world. And that can be a little bit arrogant sometimes, and we have to watch out for that. We cannot change the world if we don't understand where other people are coming from. So it's really about this empathic design, being part of a bigger whole.
Yeah, let me follow your thoughts, and maybe I can ask you this one. What type of knowledge information is included in a typical curriculum from someone working in this area?
Yeah. So if we talk about the about teaching design and learning about design, I think there's really two different things. There's the process, sort of the design thinking, the mindset, the design tools and everything. That's one aspect, and I think most universities and schools are pretty good at that part. And then there's the content. There's the actual deep, market knowledge, industry knowledge, how to build a boat, how to extrude recycled plastic. how do cities work? And I think what I see a lot especially in the service design community, and I've raised this issue before, is a lack of vertical knowledge, a lack of deep industry knowledge, and sort of a disrespect for industry knowledge. And you cannot walk into a room and start co-creating and ideating if you don't know what you're talking about. And then you can bring in great processes and tools and organize a fantastic workshop. But if you don't know the content, you cannot really move the needle strategically. So I always tell my students to really invest in read up, get to know your client, understand their business. Don't think that as a designer you get away with just facilitating the process. No, you need to understand what worries them, what are they struggling with, and that's not the design process, that's their industry, right? So I think that's really important in how we teach and how we educate.
That's the T knowledge, right? We need to be holistic, but at the same time, we need to be we need to have the knowledge to
It's an empathy
be a
exercise.
specialist. Yes,
it's an empathy exercise in the end.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So
nice. Do we have time to one more question, maybe?
A last one for closing.
The last one.
So maybe can you share with us about some companies that are currently focused in designing more sustainable services, like environmentally, socially, and financially? Who and where are they? It is a hard one.
You want to take this one, Leonard, or?
No. Sorry to be so blunt.
It was
No,
a really good one.
It's a really good question in the sense of like that good questions are the ones that are hardest to answer, right? Like there's a ton of really innovative companies out there doing amazing stuff. There's a lot of NGO organizations as well doing great stuff. I would find it really hard to pick out one or two now to say like, well, these ones are the ones that should be named in a question like that. But I think they can be found. And so if you're really looking to that, and then I would say like, well, follow Erik's advice, like dig deep into vertical, like try to understand what is the area that you want to work on, and I'm sure you'll find the companies and the organizations that are really driving the change in that area.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think almost any company now is looking into some kind of sustainability, and some companies are more advanced than others, but they all have their, I mean, I don't encounter hardly any company that's not looking into sustainability. The thing is, there's not some kind of chief sustainability officer in these companies. It's not a department, right? It's not one single person. So it's hidden in the trenches. You have to dig it up. You have to look for it. It's not presenting itself on a silver platter to you as a designer, like here's the sustainability task force or whatever. So you have to sort of work your way in and find valuable work to do, and sometimes that requires doing some other work as well. And when you're working in a company, I often talk to juniors working in companies and say, yeah, I feel my work is not sustainable enough. I want to do more work on sustainability. And I just tell them, then, work your way towards that, be active, show what you can do. Don't expect the boss to tell you that from now on you are the sustainability department. That's not how it works. So you have to be patient, and you have to, dig your way in.
Yeah. And I believe in the future that we have this new generation has more sustainability, environmental conscious. So I think in the future we'll have more sustainability teams embedded in companies.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
and we have very huge companies today trying and struggling to turn the boat into a more sustainable company. Like it's pretty harder today, but we see even huge companies and polluting companies trying to make this movement, right? So that's a step-by-step process.
I hope that in the end we don't actually need companies with a department on sustainability, because all of the decisions that are being made should be with the sustainability in the back of your head. So it should be in the financial department, as well as in the marketing, as in the engineering department. They all should have the mindset up to that place where sustainability is key part in the requirements that all decisions go through.
Absolutely. Yeah. Completely agreed. Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
also agree.
Well, we are wrapping up now. Everyone, I would like to thank you very much. We are a little bit late from our schedule, but I think that's because we were all very amused with all your knowledge and cases to share, and I really appreciate your time, and thank you for our audience for being here with us today and interacting and share putting our event in our agenda, that we know that's not always easy to, but I think that was amazing. Thank you very much for all of you for your share and knowledge, and I hope to see you again. As we told you, this talk will be recorded and save it on our YouTube, and we always also share on our social media. So that's it. Any other question that may arise it during this call, you can always chat us or our guests as well. Thank you very much, Luciana, Leonard, and Erik. That's it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
That's
so
a wrap.
much.
Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.